Hello peoples. In today's video we're going to look at the Ares Inferno. And if you watched my last video when I covered its sister ship, the Ion, then you know a whole bunch of people are PO'd at how CIG nerfed it. So how does the Inferno currently stand in patch 3.16? Well, spoiler, it's kind of bad as it suffers from two different nerfs. Now, if you like and enjoy this content, then please hit that like button, the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel so the YouTube algorithm will be fed. Don't forget that referral code in the video description below so that you can get some free in-game UEC. So this is the point I tell you to get a snack. I think potato chips with some onion dip will work. For a drink, St. Pauli Girl Dark Beer. Yeah, that's going to hit the spot. Sit back, relax, and let's get to it. First up, we're going to take a look at Urkel. As you can see, we have a size 7 bespoke Gatling gun. Pretty decent sized gun if you think about it, but if you look at the stats, not so great. Fire rate, 1,300 rounds per minute. Ammo speed, 700 meters per second. This will become apparent later on in the video as to why this is kind of bad. And the range, 2,800 meters, not great for a size 7 weapon in my opinion. Only thing I've done here is I've swapped out all the missiles for Thunderbolt 3s. Keep in mind that although Urkel has a bug in it where it won't let you swap out the arresters, you can swap to every single missile, all 20 being Thunderbolt size 3s. What's great about them is they have a pretty decent range at 1,500 meters for a lock-on, and they do decent damage at 4,654 per missile. We are going to test the accuracy here, which is kind of hit or miss depending upon the target that you're shooting at, so we'll show that in the video as well. Other than that, didn't change too much. Obviously, one of the things that we do want to do, particularly in 3.16, is swap out our shields, so we're going to go with the FR76, both of them. Next thing that I like to do is swap out my quantum drive for the XL1 so that I can go to and from all the stations in the Stanton system without having to really do a whole lot of refueling. And then finally, if we look at our EM and IR signatures, they're through the roof, so you're not going to sneak up on anything, and this is no surprise. So now, on to the testing. So as we get into our ERT mission here, one thing to note, I'm going to be using my Thunderbolt 3 missiles to try and take out, damage, destroy the fighters to the best of my ability. Now I have 20 missiles, that seems like a lot, but you're going to see that there's a high miss ratio when going up against fighters like the Hurricane or even the Valkyrie, which you would think you'd be able to hit a Valkyrie pretty hard with these missiles, but a lot of times you miss. So in this case, I'm going to start firing off my missiles. Notice I'm also not that far off. I'm within 4 kilometers now. I've already fired off 2 missiles and they're missing. So I'm going to continue to fire one at a time because I'm trying to conserve my missiles as well. And there we go. Now it took 4 missiles before I actually got a hit, and we're actually within 3 kilometers now. So at a certain point, we're going to end up coming into our minimum range, but I am going to fire off another one, and eventually, after 5 missiles, I only have 2 hit. That's not a very good hit ratio, in my opinion. So as the Hurricane speeds by us, we do get some rounds on from the size 7 Gatling, but as you're about to see, this is not where you want to be. This is going to be kind of frustrating when you're fighting a Hurricane or any fighter, Gladius, doesn't matter, and you're using this gun. You have a delay in spin up, and the other thing that's going to, if it's not apparent already, it'll become apparent, is you have such slow projectile speed that you have to have a very large lead on your pit. So here we're going to switch over to the Vanguard, and as you can see, when the Vanguard cooperates and I'm in very, very close, less than 200 meters, I can hit. But notice that my pip is wobbling quite a bit because this has the same inaccuracy when firing against a small ship as the Ares Ion does, and that is that your pip has a tendency to just kind of like wobble back and forth for no apparent reason. And we are able to take out the Vanguard, because, you know, it basically just hovered there in space for us. But watch how we try to take on the Hurricane. So the Hurricane here is going to do a pretty good job at trying to avoid our stuff. I actually make the determination that I'm not going to waste my time trying to take out the Hurricane because the Hammerhead is closed in the range. And believe it or not, I can take out the Hammerhead faster than I can take out the Hurricane. So here we're going to start firing, and notice that I don't have that same wobble. So if you look, my pip is nice and extremely centered on the target. But look at how much of a lead I need, and look at how much my rounds are arcing here on something as big as a Hammerhead. That's a pretty good arc, and that has everything to do with the projectile speed of that size 7 Gatling gun being relatively slow in conjunction. We're not out at max range here. Okay, I'm within 500 meters, and I still have to put a pretty good lead on my pip to make sure that those rounds hit. Now, the good news is I don't see that wobble or anything like that we saw when going up against a fighter. So I can hit wherever I want to hit on the Hammerhead without much fuss, other than the fact that I have to lead it a pretty good amount, considering how close in I am. One thing to note is it does look spectacular. When these rounds hit, you see all the sparks flying off and everything. Visually, it's great. And as long as you are going after a fairly large target, you're not going to have much of a problem hitting it and eventually taking it out. So, as expected, the DPS of this weapon is pretty high. It's actually higher than the Ion, and it doesn't take long of all that concentrated fire hitting the Hammerhead to take it out. So he goes pop. So now what we're going to do is switch over and go after the Hurricane. Okay, so now we're going to turn our attention onto the last surviving Hurricane that we have. I recommend that you try to use your missiles when you can, but this guy's obviously in too close. As he flies by, I'm able to get a burst off, and this is probably the best advice that I can give you if you're flying in Ares Inferno and you're engaging a fighter, particularly something like a Hurricane or a Vanguard. Use very short bursts, and you're going to have to kind of anticipate it a little bit because there is a little bit of a delay, a spool up on the weapon, which doesn't make sense to me. And as you can see and outlined before, you have a pretty high lead on that pip to be able to hit even when they're in close. Best thing to do is this right here, gain a little bit of distance, use your missiles to, you know, the best effect you can. Hopefully you can get lucky, and with just 1, 2, or even 3 missile strikes you might be able to take out a Hurricane. It really kind of depends. I've noticed that the hit ratio on the Thunderbolt 3s, at least in this engagement, is less than stellar. We're looking at higher than a 50% miss ratio with our missiles, which is not great for a missile. I would think that they would be a lot more accurate, particularly in a space sim where all this is taking place, you know, 1,000 years in the future. So we're down to 10 Thunderbolt 3s. Unfortunately, the Hurricane is still alive. He's making another pass, but this is where the NPC gets stupid, flies straight and level, and as you can see, if the target flies straight and level, you can take it out. The only problem with that is that they very rarely fly straight and level. Notice that we're down to just under 1,600 rounds, and that was 1 engagement, 1 ERT, so you're going to have to go in, repair, refuel, rearm after every engagement. So on to the next ERT mission. Again, what we're going to do is try to employ our Thunderbolt 3 missiles. We're at 8 kilometers out when I start firing, and in this particular example, I do get kind of lucky. I hit him with the first missile, kind of spins him out of control, probably blew off one of the control surfaces like an engine or a wing. I follow up with the second missile, and that manages to take the target out. So RNG Jesus worked for me on that one, and it worked out pretty well. Now I'm going to go after the next Hurricane because unfortunately I have 2 Hurricanes that I have to deal with in this mission. And I'm going to do the same tactic. I'm just going to keep firing off my Thunderbolt 3 missiles as I close in. Notice I'm getting in to within 5.5 kilometers. Now going down to 4.5 kilometers, and I've missed my last 2 missiles. I'm going to fire off a third as the Hurricane closes in. And yet again, missed that one too, so we're back to a pretty dismal miss rate. So here I'm going to open up and fire. And look at that lead on the pip. See that lead that I have to do to try and hit this guy, and he's at less than 500 meters when he flies by? That's a pretty good lead. Now we're back to this crazy jerk state on the pip, where it just kind of like, it looks like it's gonna flow right on top of the target, and then all of a sudden it starts jerking around like it is now. Pretty weird. I'd like to see that go away, because in no way is this hurricane at a disadvantage right now. I'm the one at a severe disadvantage, and it's an artificial disadvantage because it's not allowing my skill as a gunner to be able to hit a target when I should, given how close that target is. So I'm going to continue to pop off shots at him, and again, what do you see here? He's flying straight and level, and I'm able to get a lot of rounds on him. Now, also realize that the Hammerhead is closing in the distance here and is taking pot shots at me as well, so I need to try and end this fight with the Hurricane as fast as I possibly can. Of course, it's an exercise in frustration here when most of your rounds are missing. I have to maintain pretty good trigger discipline, make sure I don't eat up too much of my ammo while going after a fighter here, but I can't really leave this Hurricane free to engage me while I'm working on the Hammerhead. So all I can do really is kind of hope that the Hurricane will make a mistake. It does. It flies nice, straight, and level for me, and I'm able to take it out with a good burst. So now what I'm going to do is target the Hammerhead next. This time what I'm going to do is use my missiles. I figured, let's see how the accuracy is with the Thunderbolts against something the size of a Hammerhead, and I'm going to fire off a nice big burst. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see that all of them hit. So again, we're dealing with different sized ships. The Thunderbolts have basically no problem taking out a larger ship like the Hammerhead, or think, Caterpillar or Idris or any of those. Obviously, they're much bigger ships than a fighter. They don't have quite the maneuverability of a fighter, but basically every single missile that I fired hit the Hammerhead without any problem. I actually managed to take all the shields down using just my missiles, which I thought was pretty good. I'd like to see a little bit better accuracy against fighters, but at least we know that we can hit a nice big ship like the Hammerhead with our missiles. So the rest of this is just basically rinse and repeat from the last one. Notice I've got a really good distance here, 1,500 meters, 1,600 meters. Notice how steady my pip is. I don't see it jerking around. Notice I'm able to hit that Hammerhead from that distance with this ballistic Gatling gun. Really good. I love the accuracy when it comes to a large ship. It would just be nice to see that same type of accuracy on a smaller fighter, so that you can use your range to your advantage. And of course, because the maneuverability of the Ares class starfighters is pretty dismal, if you're in a light fighter, you should be able to outmaneuver those rounds. So there you go. We take out the Hammerhead, mostly because we were able to engage it with the missiles and soften it up pretty good. If you notice, we're down to 2,500 rounds, a little bit shy of 2,600 rounds, which means even though I probably could go do another ERT mission, I'm going to have to go and rearm just to make sure that I have enough rounds to take on the next one, because you never know how many fighters you're going to get. Well, that's going to do it for today. Let me know your thoughts on the Inferno, and if you think it has a double nerf, both accuracy and limited ammo, and what CIG should do to potentially fix that. Or if you think it's balanced, then it should be left as is, just like with the Ion. Put your thoughts in that comment section below, and as always, till next time, take care.